Shalom, everybody, and welcome back to Insights in the Parsha of the Week, Parshat Tzav, which is also, by the way, Shabbat HaGadol before Pesach. Um, we would like, though, to focus more on details of the Parsha, which are very, very important and possibly life changing. Okay, the Parsha Tzav goes into more details of certain sacrifices that, even though, like Rashi points out, even though in Parshat Vayikra, it went through just to mention from like an overview quickly of certain sacrifices and offerings. This week's parsha goes into more details. For example, the opening of Parshat Tzav talks about the olat tamid, the daily offering, the burnt offering offered in the morning and in the evening, towards the evening. So the parsha goes into details of the deshen, of the ashes, and also what sacrifices are before if there are sacrifices before or after the burnt offerings of the morning and of the afternoon, and also the wood, the log wood on the altar, the amount of rows of logs, etc. Okay, but the Kabbalah points out something very interesting. Okay, the opening of the parsha, okay, with chapter 6, verse 1 and 2. So verse 1, which is the beginning of the parsha, Vaydaber Hashem and Moshe lemor, and Hashem spoke to Moshe saying the following: Tzavet Aharon, order, command Aaron, vet banav lemor, and his sons, saying to them the following: Zot Torah olah. These, what's going to be mentioned now, is the laws, the details, the Torah of the burnt offering. Hi ha'olah. This offering is the olah. Okay, Rashi brings down what's learned on the halachic perspective, on a technical perspective, of the repetition of this, the laws of the olah. She is the olah al mukdala mizbeach, that should be burnt on the rows, the pillars of wood on the altar. Okay, all night. It starts talking about the afternoon offering, the burnt offering, that it has all night to be on. So the Torah starts talking about the burnt afternoon offering, and towards the end of the parsha, it's mentioned also the morning. Okay, so it's learned out that there's a morning and afternoon. But the Kabbalah points out the redundancy. Zot Torah ta'olah, hi ha'olah. This is the laws of the olah, the burnt offering. It's called olah because everything is offered upwards. There's no parts of the animal that are eaten by the Kohanim. It's totally ascending. Ascent is the actual translation of olah. Okay? Hi ha'olah, she, the Korban Tamid, is olah. So the Kabbalah teaches that the power of the Korban Tamid is to lift up, to elevate, to ascend. Okay? So the night offering, it ascends all the sacrifices that took place during the day, where like Rashi points out, the final offering is the Korban Tamid Shel Ben Harbayim, the daily burnt offering of the afternoon, ends all the sacrifices that were offered. And don't forget, there were thousands of people coming from all over Israel, all over the world, to offer sacrifices. Even Gentiles were coming to offer all types of sacrifices. They all had to be offered in a limited amount of time. And if they didn't make it, then that had to be pushed off to the next day. So everything was before the Korban Tamid of the afternoon, and it would elevate everything. It would that's why it's called olah. And now the one in the morning is also called the Korban Olah because its job is also to elevate, to go upwards. Okay, so these are the laws of the Korban Todah. It's Korban Tamid, the daily offering, and that it elevates, it pushes up what needs to be elevated up to Hashem. That's the job of the Korban Tamid. So we have a big question here, and Rav Nosson points out this question in his book Likutey Moharan Lesson. He says like this: the not mentioned in this parsha, but mentioned earlier in the book of Shemot, that the Korban Tamid, okay, came before the Ketoret. That like we said, the Korban Tamid has to be the opening offering and sacrifice. So if it was offered first, and then after that they lit the menorah in the morning and offered incense in the morning, and the same thing in the afternoon. That you had the Korban Tamid, and then the incense and the menorah also will be offered then after the Korban Tamid. Even though all sacrifices were before the Korban Tamid, the incense, in this sense, is not like an offering. It's something else that comes afterwards, and it's not considered that it has to be elevated by the Korban Tamid, because it comes after. So Rav Nosson asked a good question. We see, and Rabbi Nachman goes into this very deeply in the Likutey Moharan Lesson 24, that the idea of Ketoret, the incense which was offered, and again, it was right after the Korban Tamid was offered in the morning and in the afternoon towards the evening. The incense, the job is to go into the depths, down in the depths of the evil forces, to smash them and to do extraction of any holiness trapped there. Okay? So Nosson asks a very powerful question. Okay? He said, one second, Korban Tamid is to elevate. It's to go from down all the way up. And then the Ketoret is just the exact opposite. The Ketoret goes down, down, down in the depths. And that's the opposite direction. So logically, you should first offer the incense in the Beit HaMikdash in the temple. The incense should be first, meaning go to the depths, extract holiness trapped there. Once extracted and elevated, only a holiness that was deep in the abyss of darkness and impurity, then the Korban Tamid, which is called olah, elevates. Let it elevate. What in the world? That you're doing the Korban Tamid first, and then you're going the opposite direction? We're trying to go upwards, trying to elevate, olah, to go up, to ascend. And then right after that is the incense. We're going back into the depths. You know, what in the world? Rav Nosson asks. That's number one, he asks. Number two, in the tabernacle in the desert and in the Beit HaMikdash in the Holy Temple, where was the altar for the sacrifices? In the Azara in the temple, the courtyard, or the Chatzer in the tabernacle, and the Azara, it's called in the Beit HaMikdash. Okay? What was in the section called the Holy? There's there's Kodesh Kodashim, the tent of meeting, the Oel Moed. You had there, before the partition, where you had the Aron, which is the Holy of Holies, which only the Kohen Gadol goes in there once a year on Yom Kippur. Outside of that, but still enclosed, if it's in the Beit HaMikdash in Yerushalayim, and the actual bayit, the housing of the temple, and the tabernacle, it's called the Ohel Moed. You had in there the menorah, you had there the showbread, and you had there the incense altar, where the Ketoret was offered there. So now, what's going on? Korban Tamid means to go upwards. It's higher. Ketoret is going the opposite direction. So when you have a courtyard, compared to the Azara, Chatzer, compared to the bayit, or the Oel Moed, is outside. Shouldn't be the opposite. Shouldn't be the Ketoret, since the work of the Ketoret is to go backwards into the domain of impurity. That should be the incense altar. That's what should be in the courtyard. And put the altar where the Korban Tamid was offered, which is olah. It's a Korban olah. That should be technically inside the bayit, in the Oel Moed. So here it's the exact opposite. Rav Nosson asks. The Ketoret is right before Holy of Holies. That's where the incense offering is. And the Korban Tamid altar, which is ascending, is outside in the courtyard. It should be the opposite. So Rav Nosson, and this is probably one of the most beautiful pieces, life-saving, life-changing pieces of Likutey Halachot in the whole entire 8-volume set, Rav Nosson's magnum opus. Something a person should remember, possibly for the rest of their life, because it's such an important message here that Rav Nosson goes into. He says like this, that it's true that a person, before he advances, he should technically clean up his past, his mess. When a person wants to do tshuva, for example, wants to come back to Hashem, so ideally they should say to him from heaven, hey, mister, you want to advance in life? You have to first clean up all the garbage that you did. All the blemishes that you did, you have to fix that first. We can't let you advance until you fix that up. So Rav Nosson says it doesn't work like that. Why? Because if you take this attitude, if heaven takes this attitude towards people, that you have to clean up your mess and all the garbage you did in your life, and only then can you begin to advance, people will never begin in the first place. People won't begin in the first place. So what's needed? You have to give them a taste of light, of beauty, of closeness to Hashem, of feeling, elevated, feeling ascent, olah. People need that taste of closeness to Hashem. Otherwise, they will never have an incentive to begin. If a person is whole life in darkness and then you tell him in the darkness, okay, now you have to clean up the past, he won't do anything. He's in darkness. You have to convince the person. He needs an incentive. So what's needed is to give a person a taste of light, okay? A taste of what it feels to be close to Hashem, even though he's not deserving. He has a pekalech, like we say in Yiddish. He has a whole package behind him, yet heaven has compassion. Out of Rachamim, Rabbi Nosson writes, they allow a person to have a taste, a foretaste of what's actually out there. So a person could have done the most terrible things in his life, and yet when he comes to try to come back to Hashem, they lift him up, they make him feel like Superman. He's like floating and flying in the air. It's unbelievable. I love Judaism. I love Torah. I love Shabbos. I love tzaddikim. I love everything. And he's on a high. He's on a high. And he hasn't yet cleaned up his past. They do this purposely so the person has an incentive. He's tasted it. So Nosson says, this is the idea of the Korban Tamid, which is the olah, which was a burnt offering. And it's ascending a person, but it's placed in the chatzer. You're still in the courtyard. You're not in the real deal yet. You're outside. You're in the courtyard. You're out exposed. In the courtyard, in the temple, and in the tabernacle, it was open to the sky. You're outside mamish, literally, but offering the korban tamid. Yes, there's an olah. Okay. Once a person has tasted, if you want to call it, authentic Judaism, true holiness, what it means to be, quote unquote, in the ball game, inside, okay? And then they want to advance because it's only a normal, natural tendency that a person wants to grow in life. That's normal. Person wants to grow. We want to advance. Hashem shaped the human foot that it's in a direction. It's like just two poles we stand, two pegs we stand on. We stand on pegs. We have a foot that has a forward direction. The flat part of the foot is like pointing, facing forward. You got to walk, man. You got to advance. That's how it is in life, okay? We have to advance. So a person who's tasted this light and he sees, but I'm still only in the courtyard. I'm outside, and with all that beauty, so he understands. So if this is what it's like in the courtyard, how much more is waiting to advance, to go into the bayit, inside, to the Ohel Moed. But what's there? There you have the Ketoret. And, like Rav Nosson says, there are guards at the entrance, spiritual guards, Neturei Tar'ah, the guardians of the entrance. They don't let anybody in until they do the actual what's the word in English? They do the actual qualities found in the bayit. And what's that? The Ketoret. So Nosson says this is why people who are so spiritually advanced and flying, and they did tshuva and everything, and then when they want advanced more, the guards at that level of the bayit, they say you can't advance until you go back to your past, and you go back to the domain of impurity, and there you have to go elevate the holy sparks trapped because of what you did. So most people crash at this. They're advancing, beautiful life, beautiful marriage, Yiddishkeit, davening is amazing, learning. Of course, there's struggles, ups and downs, but in the main, I'm advancing. It's like the stock market, that I'm ups and downs, but going upwards, okay? But then you hit the level where you want to go into the bayit, and that's where the Ketoret is. And they say from heaven, you have to go back. Now is the time for Ketoret. Now they throw you back, way back, to where you were initially, and sometimes even deeper, in order to activate the power of the Ketoret, which is to smash the evil and to extract the holy sparks that you left there, the holy gold, the spiritual treasures that were stuck there because of what you did. You have to go and collect them, and only you can do that because they belong to you. So this, Rav Nosson says, is where most people crack in life. They can't handle this point, that when they see they're thrown back and they're farther than where they were when they started, so most people, they give up at that point. But they don't realize, Rav Nosson says, this is part of the process. You want to enter the bayit, you have to activate the Ketoret. And Rabbi Nachman says in lesson 24, Ketoret is synonymous with simcha. You need to be happy even with the minimum, even the minimum of the minimum, to be happy with that. That's the only way you can be able to extract, survive this, and get out. Okay? Extraction, Ketoret. He says, Ketoret yesamach lev. It's a verse from Proverbs, that Ketoret brings joy to the heart. And Rabbi Nachman shows it's synonymous, that joy and Ketoret are the exact same idea. that you have to be happy in the darkness, not to feel bad. Oh, look at me now. I used to be flying. I used to be able to learn so much Torah. I had such a high level of fear of heaven and your Shamayim and the Kedusha. And now look at me. I feel like I'm just a couch potato and I'm getting nowhere in my life. And so he says you have to be careful not to fall into that trap and to break yourself with futility and guilt and everything, because it's going to make you stuck there. The way out is you have to value the little bit of good and be happy about it, and that's how you get out, okay? So Nosson says, this is why the Ketoret is in the bayit, because that's the only way to advance, is after they did this purposely from heaven for your own good. They let you taste what it means to have an ascent, a korban olah, okay? What it means to be up and close to Hashem, to have that experience. And once you've tasted it, you can no longer say, it doesn't exist. It's nothing there. You've tasted it. They let you from heaven taste it. And now once you've tasted it, it's an incentive. Okay, we're sending you back to the darkness. And now you have to extract, like the Ketoret, all the holiness trapped back there. Okay? But the chances of you succeeding are good because you can't deny it. You've tasted it. Okay? So this Rav Nosson explains is why the Ketoret is in the bayit, and it should be reversed technically. The Korban Olah, which is ascending, should be in the bayit and inside, in the real deal. And the courtyard, that's where the Ketoret should be. No, because like we said, they first let you taste the ascent, what it feels to be close to Hashem, to be ascended, spiritually ascending, to have that experience, even though you've done terrible things, gone through things, not undeserving. Once they see that you've reached the level, now you want to advance more, they push you back. Now you have to go back to the darkness to do the work of the Ketoret. And this, Rav Nosson answers also the first question that we asked. This is why the Korban Tamid is before the Ketoret, in the morning and in the afternoon. Because first you ascend, and once you have that ascent, now the work of the Ketoret, now to go back, which is really not going back. It's the next stage up. Okay? You had a Korban Olah, you went ascended, and followed is the Ketoret. They send you back down to elevate what's left there. You can do it now because you've tasted the Korban Tamid. Rav Nosson says, based on the Kabbalah, the Korban Tamid has influence on the Ketoret, which is offered afterwards. It adds to it. That you've tasted the light. You saw light. Then with that ability, they send you back the Ketoret to do the dirty work, the dirty job, that you now have to roll your sleeves, to go into the mud and the schmutz, to recollect all the holy sparks there. This is why the Korban Ketoret is following the Korban Tamid. So this week's Parsha is in Ascent, talks about the Korban Tamid. We should be zochet to have the olah, but not to be fooled and to think, we reached it. I'm at the top of the mountain. You're not at the top of the mountain. You're just in the courtyard. You've reached an experience very high, but you're still in the courtyard. You're still outside. Yeah, but I feel good. Nachon, it's true. You do feel good about it, but it's a preparation for the real deal, is you have to get into the bayit. The main living of a Jew is at home. A Jew doesn't live on the streets. Like the Gemara says, that Avraham called the Mount Moriah a mountain, and then Yitzchak called it a field, a sadeh, and Yaakov called it Beit Elokim, the house of the Lord. And that means the Gemara says, and Rabbi Nachman brings this Gemara in lesson 10, Likutey Moharan, that Yaakov was able to take the high concepts of Judaism and bring it internalized in a home. That's what a home is. A home, you have your four walls, and you have your privacy, and you can advance. And that's the idea of Judaism, to enter the bayit. But to get to the bayit, you have to be ready to face back the darkness that you came from, and not to say, no, I don't want to go back there. No, you have to go back there, because you left holy sparks that only you can elevate, and the job is not finished until those holy sparks are restored with you. We should be zoche to be strong in the work of the Korban Olah, and also Olah Tamid, which is, by the way, Tamid, every day, and also to have the Ketoret because of that, B'ezrat Hashem. And just one final word, it's not by chance. Rabbi Nachman's wording is, in Likutey Moharan, mitzvah gedola liot besimcha tamid. It's a big mitzvah to always be happy. In a sense, the word tamid that he says in mitzvah gedola is associated with the Korban Tamid, just like it was offered every day consistently, and it's there to give you simcha, to have light experience in Judaism, a shining light experience, to give you joy. Wow, I matter. Hashem loves me, and I'm part of the picture. So that's the idea of mitzvah gedol. It's a big mitzvah to always be happy because of the Tamid, because you're part of the picture. Just you have to realize that in order to finish the process, you have to go back into the darkness. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. Have a really happy Pesach, and that should lead to a kosher Pesach too.